We can now go live to London to speak to Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddy Gray. Freddy, great to have you on the show. We just heard there from President Donald Trump saying King Charles is my friend and an elegant gentleman. He's very excited about staying in Windsor Castle. Very warm, positive words there from Donald Trump. Will this be the theme of the visit, do you think? Freddie, I do apologise. I think Freddie is on a mute at the moment. Freddie, if you could unmute yourself and we'll definitely get back to you. Just waiting there for Freddy Gray from The Spectator to speak to us a little bit about Donald Trump's second visit to the UK. Freddie, have I got you now?
I've turned it back on. Sorry, my
That's
fault.
no problem at all, Freddie. I appreciate you turning it back on. Great to have you. So I'm not sure if you heard my question or if you wanted me to repeat it there, but we heard Donald Trump very positive, saying King Charles is my friend, an elegant gentleman, super excited about staying at Windsor Castle. So positive words from President Donald Trump. Do you think this will be the theme of the visit?
I think so. I think the establishments in Washington and Westminster are hoping that, unlike the start of this interview, it all goes without a hitch. But there are a lot of difficult issues floating around in the air. There is the Jeffrey Epstein scandal and, of course, the sacking of Peter Mandelson, the ambassador to the US, last week, which Mandelson had played a key part in organizing this state visit. In fact, he was instrumental in setting it up and arranging the sort of really feast of pomp and grandeur that the British state was going to put on for Donald Trump. So there's that hanging over it. But as you heard from Donald Trump just there, the mood music now is trying to be positive, talking about how much he likes the king. The Prime Minister will seek to butter him up as much as possible without annoying his own voters, because not all Labour voters are big supporters of Donald Trump. So the big hope is it goes without a hitch. But I do remember Donald Trump coming in 2018 to see Theresa May, and he gave an interview. He hasn't done this yet. He'll have to squeeze in an interview very quickly if he is to do it. But he did an interview with the Sun just before the visit, which completely derailed the whole trip, because he said lots of shocking things about Brexit, about immigration in Britain, which rather derailed his visit. That hasn't happened so far. It seems like he's in a more benign mood this time around. We'll just have to wait and see.
So, Freddie, it sounds to me a little bit like what we're going to see from Donald Trump might be different from the first time around. Lessons learned. And the Telegraph is reporting that President Trump is expected to go easy on Starmer because basically he's on the political ropes. And you did mention there the sacking of Lord Mandelson. Do you agree with this? Do you think Trump will take a softer approach with Keir Starmer, someone he sees as a key ally?
I think so. I think he intends to. But the very fact that he feels he needs to go softly is in itself a bit embarrassing for the government. The fact that, people in Washington are saying we all know that he's on the ropes shows just how grave Keir Starmer's political crisis is. And in a way, this trip, if this trip goes well, it could be some much needed positive news for Keir Starmer. But if anything goes wrong, or if any other scandal breaks in the next few days, there's a lot of people here saying that Keir Starmer's one scandal away from resignation. That may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not that much of an exaggeration.
So it's interesting to say that it's one scandal away, and a lot of the news that we are reading seems to be that Keir Starmer is in hot water over all sorts of things. Mandelson, the immigration situation in the country, an aide having to resign. So is Keir Starmer pretty much on his way out?
Well, it's probably a little bit too soon to say that, but it does feel as though this government is falling apart. Just 2 weeks ago, Keir Starmer announced phase 2. He came back from the summer and he announced phase 2 of his government. And everybody said to that, well, what on earth was phase 1? Because you don't seem to have achieved much in phase 1. But phase 2, he said, was going to be all about delivery. And since he's uttered those words, his party, his government, have had nothing but disaster after disaster. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, had to resign over false claims she made about her property purchases. And then you've had the Mandelson scandal that has bubbled on and on and on. And there's a lot of questions about how much Keir Starmer knew about the nature of Mandelson's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. And when was he informed? And at what stage did he decide to defend Mandelson in Parliament last week? So lots and lots of questions hanging over him. And it feels we've got quite used to having governments in crisis at the moment. Since Brexit in 2016, we've had a Tory party that was in government for about 14 years that had a succession of crises. And it feels like Labour are just carrying that on. We seem to have a political class, a Labour Party and a Tory party and a Conservative Party that just seem to go from disaster to disaster. And that is why you're seeing Nigel Farage, of course, Donald Trump's friend, doing so well in the polls with his Reform Party. And a lot of people think he will be the next Prime Minister of Great Britain.
And Freddie, let's just move away a little bit from Starmer's political crisis at home. What will be in focus as Donald Trump and Keir Starmer meet each other? What are the main topics of discussion?
Well, the main one, the big one, is the trade deal. Donald Trump put Britain at the front of the queue for the trade deal with the United States. He seems to like Keir Starmer, much to the surprise of some of his advisors. He seems to have a genuinely good rapport with Keir Starmer. And I suspect thrashing out the details of that trade deal will be part of the discussion. So it won't be anything final yet. We won't have a kind of signed, sealed and delivered agreement. But positive mood music on that, moving the discussions forward, agreeing that we in America agree on the basics of the trade deal. That will be the key part of their discussions. But they will talk about other things too. They will, of course, talk about Ukraine. They will talk about Gaza. And they will also talk, I think, about the nature of immigration and free speech. Free speech is going to be a very, very potentially sore topic. There's a lot of people in the Trump administration, including Vice President J.D. Vance, who really want America to put a lot of pressure on Britain to be less censorious about speech. There's some concern in Trump circles about the fact that the British government is locking people up for things they say on social media, seems to be clamping down on free speech in a way that the American government doesn't agree with at all. And linked to that is the question of the tech companies who, of course, control speech on the internet. And it's very interesting that Trump is coming over with various tech titans, various oligarchs of tech, if you like. Sam Altman, the ChatGPT OpenAI founder, is going to be there. And these tech companies are going to try and apply pressure on the British government to play their way when it comes to speech online. That could be a sore point, and that's one area where things could really spin out of control, and the nice mood music that you're hearing could be interrupted by a row.
And Freddie, how much influence will the soft power of the royal family have on how President Trump does deals with the UK and the talks of more free speech in the country? Because we know that Donald Trump loves the pomp and ceremony. He loves the royal family, and this is a way for him to really indulge in that.
Well, Britain does have an advantage in terms of our dealings with Donald Trump as a person, because his mother was Scottish. She was a big fan of the royal family. He has said repeatedly how much he loves the pomp and the ceremony, as you say. And he clearly is flattered by this second state visit, this unprecedented state visit. But I think we British, we have a tendency to exaggerate how much that matters in terms of the actual conduct of diplomacy, and particularly the conduct of trade relations. Donald Trump may like the royal family. He will like being treated well. Yes, that will give us an advantage in some ways, but it's not going to mean that he's suddenly going to roll over and say, actually, I'll give you everything you want on trade.
Freddie Gray, Deputy Editor of The Spectator. Always brilliant to have your analysis and thoughts. Thank you for joining us.